how quickly you realized you needed to start building this team to the point where you're, building a team of over a dozen in just a few months.
Yeah. I mean, so I came on board. One of the reasons why I turned the job down is the revenue goals to me seemed so aggressive that it almost felt like it was be set up for failure. But the CEO reached out to me, both the founders reached out to me, and they're just so heart-centered and caring, and just everything seems so interesting. I came on board and officially full-time in January. And dude, it's a struggle, like being like a team of one and going from 13 to 36. And how do you do that? Like, how do you systematically attack that? Because it really feels like you need to fire like 50 bazookas at the same time while building out a strategy.
Hello and welcome to DTC by Pilot House. I'm Eric Dick with Head of Partnerships, Dan Norcia. And today our guest is a friend of mine, Dave Huffman, who is a VP of Microbe Formulas, which is a leading supplement company experiencing some absolutely crazy growth over the past few years. 107% in 2019, and so far in 2020, they're up 40%. The craziest thing, and that what we're going to be talking about today on the cast, is how his marketing team jumped up from a solo operation team of one to a team of 14 in about 4 months. So I'm really eager to dive in to what content efforts are requiring a team of that size and what it's like to grow a team of that size that quickly. So welcome to Hot Seat, Dave. How you doing?
Yeah, good. I don't want to throw a bomber out there real quick, but you called me Dan in the intro. We can go with that.
Oh my God. I wrote it because it was Dan Norcia and Dave Huffman. Okay. Well, we're going to roll with it. We're going to roll with it. We're going to get it.
I'll be
Dan and Dan. It's like the 1996 Olympics all over again.
Exactly. And listen,
Dan and Dave. Was it Dan and Dave?
It was Dan and Dave.
There you go.
We're aging ourselves, gentlemen.
I know. We got another Dave on the team at Microbe. We just call him Money. His last name's McMenemy. We call him Money, and everybody just calls me Huff. So
nice.
We're Huff and Money over there.
We have 5 Kyles. So that tells you the age range of our company. We're definitely on the millennial side of things, which is pretty fun.
Dude, we have so many like Connors that we actually just named one Mike. We just call him something.
That's hilarious.
Is that a result of scaling your team so quickly?
Yeah.
You got to hire by name. The Kyle that I've just hired is now KG, so I think he's cool with that, so that'll work. Nice. Okay, so tell me your story, Dave. Tell me you came, because I know you go way back in the performance marketing space, like Dan and I. Tell us your story and tell us a little bit about Microbe Formulas.
Oh man, where do I start? It seems like every year it gets like 5 years longer. Story 16 years ago. I don't know. I actually started off in clinical psych before I got into anything else. I was working as a psychiatric technician for a few different hospitals. And then I got kind of bit by the entrepreneurial bug, picked up my guitar and started playing music, and fell in love with the marketing and business side of things. So while I was doing that, I needed to supplement my income, started a little boutique marketing agency back at that time, talking 2005, 2006. Parlayed that into a brand side gig, working like sort of in the education space or the career education space. And then I just tried to figure it out for a few years. Worked in healthcare, worked at Fortune 500 as like head of social and CRM. But then like about halfway, I did some writing for the Content Marketing Institute and got kind of into the content game a little bit. And then I got into info products and then e-commerce. So the last 6 years or so, I've been mostly in the physical product space, which has kind of led me to Microbe. I was actually at ClickBank before I was here. I was head of digital over there and went for the VP of marketing slot and made it to the final 2 and didn't get it. So it was kind of a blessing in disguise. I thought I was going to scale out an agency kind of like as a side hustle, and Microbe brought me on to run their paid ads and offered me the job 3 times. I turned it down 3 times. And on the 4th one, I said yes. And here we are.
Wow, very cool. Tell me about Microbe then. Like, how long have they been in the game?
Dude, they're it's unreal. It's so Dr. Todd Watts and Dr. Jay Davidson, they've been in the chronically ill alternative health space for, I don't know, 15 years or more. But Microbe we're just finishing up, we'll be finishing up our third year. So they're 3 years old. I mean, they went from, like, in year one, 675,000, year two, 5 million, year three, 13. So actually we're coming into, like, rounding out year four, and we're on pace for 32 right now. So really young. And the first 3 years, hyper growth. So usually, you see some, like, stabilization or maybe a little bit of a dip, but we're still kind of climbing.
That's unreal. I was, before I was doing this with Pilot House, I was doing some CBD, working with some CBD companies, and so I was kind of in this alternative health space. And I just know there are so many companies in this space. What does it take in 2020 to get, like, a really to get ahead? How to start from scratch with, obviously you have the doctor's background, you have, I think that's obviously a huge part of it, is the authenticity, but how have you been able to gain so much traction in these 3 years?
Well, listen, man, like, for me, I just came on board really in November.
Okay.
Most of this growth was prior to me coming on board. And it was really, I think it was built on the back of a personal brand. So, but at the end of the day, and you guys were talking about this in our last podcast too, it's really about the product and real differentiation in that product. I mean, like, standing out in the supplement space. This is why I really didn't want to get into supplements, because, like, when I was at ClickBank, for example, I just saw a lot of private label stuff. Guys build a personal brand, just slap a label on some, a supplement and sell it. And that's fine. I'm not knocking that at all. Whatever you want to do, but to really stand out, again, I'm not an expert in supplements at this point, but I think you have to create a category, and you have to become the king of that category. When I say stand out, I mean, like, billion-dollar company and beyond. Category creation. I mean, it's differentiation. It's business 101. People talk about it, but I don't know if they really know what it means. And, like, at Microbe Formulas, I see some things going on. Like, for example, we have a lab. We've spent millions of dollars on a lab, and we have a science team. We have a biochemist on staff. We have the #1 carbon scientist in the world, who has built this, like, carbon delivery technology that binds with toxins and helps with the delivery of the ingredients, helps protect them, so more ingredients actually, are absorbed into the body. So that's what I mean. And, like, we're actually just getting started into that category creation. I mean, up to this point, it's all been sort of personal brand. We went really deep into the chronically ill sort of detox space. And now we're looking to sort of scale out of that. And I think that's where category creation comes in.
So what category in this case? It's like, is it a specific category within supplements? Is it a specific kind of new supplement? Like, what is the actual category in this case?
Yeah. So listen, we're just figuring that out. We actually I came on board in January. In March, I reached out to one of the co-founders, and I just wanted to know, like, what's your vision for this company? What's your vision for the marketing of this company? He didn't really know. Like, this thing is a rocket ship, and they're just, like, everybody's hanging on, right? So we just had our leadership retreat last week, and we were like, well, it's around carbon technology is really, so it's a new category of supplements is what we think it is, right? So we're still kind of defining this, and we're kind of aiming in that direction. That's where we think it's going. We don't really know yet. We just know that we have real differentiation in our formulas, that we have something that helps deliver them that no one else has. And we're still kind of crafting the messaging around that.
I think that delivery piece is key. It's funny. We were looking at Seed really closely. Do you remember Seed is it's like a probiotic supplement that came on the market about 2 years ago. It's these, like, dark green capsules. Everything's very minimalist, but their #1 marketing message wasn't about the probiotics necessarily. It was the delivery mechanism that they had, their proprietary capsule, which everyone's big worry about supplements is, like, do they absorb? Does this actually work or whatever? So if you focus on that, like, delivery mechanism, it seems to make sense, especially if you have something novel and valuable there.
Yeah, there's a really great book on this called Play Bigger. You may have read it. But it's really just about communicating how you're different and not better. right? Because when you talk, if I sat here all on this podcast talking about how much better I am, you guys would instantly think I was a douche.
Correct.
But the moment I start talking about how I'm different, then it's like, oh, really? Then tell me a little bit about that. So just kind of opens the door a little bit. And I guess the key is you really have to have some differentiation there. And that's where all the work comes in, is really figuring out how to communicate that.
So just quickly to your point about if you were telling us how awesome you were, we would think you were a douche. My dad tells this story all the time. And, you know, if you're in a room with a bunch of people and you're standing up at the mantle with a drink in your hand, telling everyone how great you are, nobody cares. No one's going to listen. If someone else is up there talking about how great you are, everyone pays attention.
Absolutely.
Which is pretty interesting, and actually a technique that we have applied to great success in some of the work we've done with our clients around third-party brand build-ups.
Yeah, I've heard you guys talk about this. My mind instantly went to like user-generated content, but third-party brand build-ups. I was interested in more like how you guys really do that.
Sure.
Yeah. So essentially,
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Eric.
No, you keep it rolling.
So basically what we do is we create a trusted third party that's not attached to the brand, sort of like an advertorial third party informational site, where, you know, people can go and find information about the category itself. Obviously, we genuinely will talk about the benefits of our client in a more positive light than some of the other products out on the market. And it allows us to be a little bit more aggressive with messaging and a little bit more direct with how we want to talk about the product. Another added benefit of that is that once you sort of reach saturation with your Facebook advertising, it's a great way to drop your CPMs and your costs again, because it's a new brand, it's a new product. And, you know, a lot of new advertisers get a little bit of a cost advantage on that platform.
Yeah, I love that. I used to use that technique sort of in SEO when I was in healthcare. Just create like a I would call it like a microsite, but it would actually be like a little mini brand. And then I've experimented with using sort of micro branded or brand, like off-branded page, not off-branded, but third-party brand pages for Facebook advertising, but never really actually tried to build up like a third-party brand. That sounds really interesting.
Yeah, realistically, it's you get enough up so that you have some content, but really it's the engaging pre-sale pieces that you build. So whether it's an advertorial, whether it's a quiz, it just really allows you to go after a wider audience who may not even be aware. They may not be as category aware or as product or like even they may just be problem aware. They may not be aware of even the whole category as much. So it allows you to take in a broader section of people, and then with the content, whittle it down to the hot white interest for your product. But let's talk about your marketing. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say one other thing, and it was sort of looping back into your differentiation and your content strategy. Are you talking about the fact that you have a carbon scientist on staff and that you have a bioengineer and that you're doing all this cool stuff?
Not
because
yet.
I think that's
It is actually it's in our Q3 initiatives. I mean, our team has been chomping at the bit to get in that lab. I mean, it is like, awesome. We've just been like salivating going, guys, do you understand? Like, this is, once we can get in there and we can get, his name is Jeff Griswold, man. He was a freaking like Olympic Taekwondo, like gold medal winner. I mean, he's incredible. His story is like, you wouldn't even believe it. But yeah, that's definitely in the plans.
Very cool.
Nice. Well, let's talk. So I took a look at your marketing, and you have so much. You have a lot going on there. You have a lot of content, a lot of really good stuff. Talk a little bit about what you did when you got in, and then how quickly you realized you needed to start building this team to the point where you're building a team of over a dozen in just a few months.
Yeah, I mean, so I came on board. One of the reasons why I turned the job down is the revenue goals to me seemed so aggressive that it almost felt like it was be set up for failure. But they're so the CEO reached out to me, both the founders reached out to me, and they're just so heart-centered and caring, and just everything seems so interesting. I came on board and officially full-time in January. And dude, it's a struggle, like being like a team of one and going from 13 to 36. And how do you do that? Like, how do you systematically attack that? Because it really feels like you need to fire like 50 bazookas at the same time while like, you know, building out a strategy. So that's kind of what I tried to do, like just do what I could with what I had based off of what they hadn't really done yet. So first thing I did when I got in house was just start on the Facebook ads. They'd done like a lot of really just direct response, and it was good stuff. I had another agency running it, but I went kind of a level higher to like more problem unaware audience and started using content, like repurposing our content to BuzzFeed style videos just to build a real nice, big, juicy mid funnel. And then once I got some front end acquisition going, I started working on some of the back end flows just immediately, because they really hadn't, dude, they got to 13 million with not a lot of email marketing. They've done a lot of health summits and things like that. So a lot of low hanging fruit there. I was lucky enough that a guy I worked with at ClickBank, David McMenemy, followed me over as he's now the director of performance marketing, but he came over just to be the performance marketing manager or specialist, so to speak. And he was working on a lot of that back end build out with me. Shortly after that, like, so we're climbing, we're like, you know, 50, 60% month over month. We get into February. Somehow we poach the head of email from bodybuilding.com. She comes in. And then like now she's kind of more starting around February, March, she's more systematically building out the back end. Like what we really want to get to is like a hyper dynamic personalization approach that mixes some CRM data with, you know, some just it back into the flows. But really to this point, like we're still working on that. What I've done to this point, like what are we, 7 months in? As there's probably a better name for this, but I've been calling it acquire and harvest. So we acquire about 3,000 to 5,000 new customers a month. We'll bring them in through like a, you know, a direct response offer, like something that I've never been a fan of, but it's working like gangbusters. Free plus shipping funnel is one of them. David's completely killing that. So we'll bring in 3,000 to 5,000 first-time buyers at like a $45 or $75 AOV, and then we'll run a site-wide promo, 25% off, like 1 or 2 times a month, and reconvert those guys into second and third-time buyers like within 30 days. And the second time they buy, they'll spend $130. The third time they buy, they'll spend $187. So it's not something I want to do long-term, but in order to map to the growth goals and just kind of get some momentum, that's what we've done at this point.
Why do you not want to do it long? You don't want to be totally reliant on ongoing discounts?
Yeah, I don't want to be a promo machine. I mean, I think people expect it in e-commerce. They expect a deal. And look, when you give people a reason to buy, they buy more. I mean, our AOV goes up like it hovers around $175. When we run a site-wide promo, 25% off, it goes up to $230.
And your margins must be massive on supplements too, right? Dude,
so here's the other thing. Our margins are insane. Yeah. We control, like they've worked really hard on controlling that supply chain. We've got like 90% margins on some products. I mean, it's almost like info product margins. So we've had $250,000 days just running site-wide promos. And then we go and look at those first-time buyers that as we focus on what I call CV or customer volume as part of this strategic formula that I use to drive the team. When we want to ramp up buyer frequency, we just mail them to a promo, and it's simple. I know it's not sexy, it's not super clever, but it's working, and it's given us some time to breathe and build out sort of a longer term strategy.
That's so cool. So you've got this harvest strategy where, you know, what was the first part of harvest?
Acquire and harvest.
Acquire, because everyone has to have names for things, right? You gotta be bully, you gotta survey, you gotta acquire and harvest. So then, and before that, like, what percentage of your, like, break down your budgets for me, because there's got to be a step before acquire as well. And is like, do you put a good chunk of your budget into sort of like organic content building to get people, like you say, problem aware, brand aware, and then you market into that pool, or is most of the promo stuff going cold?
So most of it's cold, man. Yeah. And some of it is email to leads that were generated from summits
Okay.
the last 3 years that just never bought. That's been a large portion of it, but it's cold Facebook ads. It's there's some like registration path traffic that we run that I don't hear a lot of people talking about. It's kind of like our secret weapon. We're still testing that to scale that up, but it's mostly been cold. Now before I came on board, they followed sort of Dr. Axe's model where they like went all in on SEO. So at one point we were spending like 50 grand a month on SEO.
Wow.
And it was, I mean, it had a big impact until Google's latest core update, and it cut us in half. So we're going to pivot that, because I mean, if you look just back in 2018, Dr. Axe almost got like everything but blacklisted from the SERPs.
Wow.
And Google doesn't like the health industry. So actually this last time, it was the third, I think, most negatively impacted. So we're pulling all that back, and it's all going into Facebook ads, Google search, shopping. We're going to continue to do some reg path and some and summits are really big. So, but I'm focusing a lot on cold right now. But yeah, that's where most of it goes.
Are you doing a lot of retargeting?
Yeah, go ahead.
Or is it mostly prospecting?
So I sort of prescribe to 60% prospecting, 30 or 20% sort of mid funnel. And then I break down the last like bottom and then existing between the last percentage. But to be honest with you, at this point, the team has scaled so quickly. I probably spend an hour and a half a week inside that account, and it's sort of on autopilot at this point. I mean, it's something that is probably, I hate to admit, but it's something that I haven't got to spend near enough time that I want to. So we end up with a lot of prospecting campaigns right now, because it's just easy to grab an image from our media team and load it up and run. It's real easy for me to go grab an article and repurpose it into a BuzzFeed style video, but there's the strategy in that account, in the Facebook account right now, is severely lacking.
But the results are still coming in, so there's obviously a lot of room to roll with it. You're using Lumen 5 for your videos?
No, we're actually using Biteable.
Okay.
I think it's Biteable. But I've used Lumen 5, Wave, Pick, Play, Post. Biteable, I don't know. Have you used Biteable?
No, I haven't.
They've got their templates are amazing. And that's really what I need right now, is just something that I can plug and play. If it's not too cheesy and not too, stock footage looking. And they've at least had enough out of the gates. Now, don't get me wrong. We've got our content team, our marketing team is like 15 growing, but our content and media team make up 10 of that. So we've got the chops to do this stuff. We're still building the processes to get it done. So a lot of this is like quick start, like iteration, and then we find a winner, and then we get it into a queue, into their backlog to up level it. And it's all still so new, man, that it's just, it takes time to build.
Ready, fire, aim, right? I've worked in multiple different, content operations, and I've the one that didn't go as well was the one where we really just tried to outline all the kinds of content we would do, really come up with a high level strategic plan for all the content, but then executing on it was sort of lacking. Whereas the ones that I've always had the most success with are when you put the content out, you refine it over time and build a plan kind of around that,
Yeah, no, I had our creative director reach out to me. He's like, "Are we really running this as an ad?" And I was like, "Yeah, come here. I'll show you this. I'll show you. It's like 5-to-1, and it's generated probably $20,000 in revenue in the last 60 days." And he's like, "Oh my God, let me take a shot." And then he'll take a shot at it. But here's the thing: pretty doesn't always convert either. So back to like the third party like brands, like
Yep.
I remember I came in as a director of traffic and conversion with an info product brand once, and the ugliest stuff generated millions of dollars. And I would always try to up level it to these beautiful like landing pages, and they never did even close to the same. So it's really interesting because you get something, you get like a first iteration going. Like I'm just real big on the first 72 hours, getting something out there, looking at the optimization KPIs, trying to figure out where you need to go next from there. But oftentimes those things end up winning, and I kind of leave them running. And, those are the ones that end up scaling up.
Very cool. Can we go back a little bit to the strategic formula you use to drive the company? I know it's not rocket science, but anytime we can come up with formulas on the cast that help people, I think there's a lot there.
Yeah. So do you know who Drew Sanaki is?
Yep. Yeah. He's a smart guy.
So I learned this from him a few years ago, and it's CV times AOV times frequency. And it's basically acquisition times average order value times buyer frequency equals revenue. And when I say I use that to drive the team, it's because things are happening so quickly. And the company does it just now, after 3 years, started doing annual meetings to come up with quarterly initiatives. So how do you drive a team and create cohesion when you don't have even quarterly initiatives to really gather everybody around, with? Well, I've been doing that with, now listen, my team told me that they were going to create a drinking game for every time I said strategic formula in this podcast. So they're probably going to get hammered during this segment, but I use it with a strategic formula. It's every quarter, I set benchmarks for CV. So it's acquisition, AOV, and frequency. And then we have an ultimate goal, which is revenue. And we just use those levers to impact the revenue. And the beauty of it is when you look at it as a formula, you can decide to pull one lever, 2 or 3, or you can just use 2 to balance out one. Because every time we drive one up, another one falls. I think we acquired 8,000 new customers last month. Well, when we did that, our AOV went from 185 to like 98 or something like that. And then some days it was like 45. So, we're overloading acquisition and driving AOV, through the toilet. So then next month we just average that out a little bit. We back off acquisition and we focus more on frequency. That's basically how it works.
And so like all of your team's actions could be filtered through one of those prisms. You're working on, all of your actions are for increasing one of those factors.
Yeah. I mean, I love it because the way that the team is kind of built around them too. So our performance marketing team, they really own customer volume or first time buyers acquisition. Our conversion rate optimization, our director of conversion or CRO, she really owns AOV. Our email, our head of email owns buyer frequency. So when we're setting these targets for these objectives, they know immediately what they need to do. I don't even really need to say, okay, guys, we need to build out the back end flows. I just know, guys, this quarter, we need to increase buyer frequency from 42% back up to 60. So, Carrie, what do we need to do to make that happen? She knows immediately, and I'm just kind of off to the races.
That's amazing. And all of this makes me think, you reached out on one of our podcasts where we were talking a little bit about the internal tool we use for CRO. And we're early days with that, but hearing you talk about the business and the way you think about it, we'll definitely have to get you on there as someone early on, because I think there's a huge potential for what that tool could do, especially for teams like yours.
No, I listened to that episode and I get goosebumps thinking about it, because the way you guys operate, that's pretty much like spot on with how we think. And I don't know, that sounds like a really interesting opportunity.
Nice. Well, we'll make that happen for sure. So you've mentioned a few things here. This is one of the reasons I'm sure you decided to sign on with Microbe Formulas was their breadth of their content, their whole approach to marketing. You mentioned the summit, which I actually hadn't heard about, but I see that you also have a podcast. You also have a group. Can you talk a little bit about this like sort of net that you've created and that the team has created and how it benefits your sales in an ongoing way? Yeah,
man. So the group is freaking priceless. It's it's more of kind of a retention play. As people, we've pretty much scaled. When we've scaled in this chronically ill space. Our avatar, at least at this point, we have one. We believe there are many more, than we're building those out. But up to this point, it's a girl we call Lucy. She's chronically ill. She doesn't really know it, so she's problem unaware. So a lot of the content, at least initially, is designed to meet her where she's at, some stuff that she may have heard about gut health. It's just, really popular, topics that she may be familiar with. And then we use that to kind of get her into the detox, drainage pathways and removing parasites from the body, things like that. But that's what the group is really great about is, everybody that makes a purchase comes in through the post-purchase flow. People can request to be part of the group. We have a community manager that works on growing that. But as people take these products, sometimes they get worse at first because their body just starts to open up and drain. That's phase one of the whole protocol. And, if without that group, they would be calling customer care, which they do. We've got a great customer care team, really knowledgeable. They're always on the phones. But this group, we sort of crowdsource that information. And so it's great for retention, but it's also freaking money for product launches. I mean, when we soft launch a new product, we'll do $100K in an hour by just, doing like a quick webinar and teaching on it and then, making an offer. So the group is huge for retention and just, I think, brand loyalty. The podcast, though, I don't know where I remember the story from. I don't know if it's like a fable, like some proverb, or if it's true. But there's a story of a village that built train tracks decades before a train showed up because they knew one day the train would come. That's basically our podcast. It was launched last year, and there hasn't been a lot of time really. I don't want to say a lot of time put into it. We haven't really promoted it, but it's really meant ultimately to tie all of our brands together. Like you were saying, like with a third party brand, like this is going to be called True Detox. It's the name of the podcast, but it's ultimately going to be sort of like the Flux Capacitor of all of our brands. I mean, we have a B2B brand that focuses on practitioners. We have a completely different line of supplements for them. We've got a direct-to-consumer brand, Microbe. And then under Microbe, we've got products launching. Our science team came up with a formulation that triples the volume of beehives. So we're going to launch a beehive product. So we've got all of these things, and this podcast, we think, can tie it all together by bringing, people together to tell stories and bring practitioners on as experts. And we're taking it seriously this year. We actually hired someone who's got like 20 years of major market radio experience to really build that up. And we're going to put more effort into it this year. But that's how we kind of
the beehive stuff. Who's buying? Is it like
the
bees aren't buying that?
Dude, nobody's buying it yet. What we do is we come with these formulas and we got to test them to get proof. So we hand them out, and we've got videos of beehives before and after. And it's legitimately, I'll say right now, this will save, this sounds delusional, by the way, I know. But this will save bees. This will save the bees. I swear to God, it's the craziest thing I've ever seen. But here's what I mean by where we were talking over Facebook Messenger. When I say product launches, what I'm really talking about is horizontal scale into other markets. And that's how we'll get to $1 billion. Like, we won't get to $1 billion in the detox space by scaling vertically, but we can use our formulations because we've got customers that, for example, use our products on their dogs because they just wanted to see what would happen. And the dog went from like death's door to like vibrant and back to life. So we're going to launch a pet line. We're going to soft launch a pet line this quarter. So, things like that. But the podcast, we really think, can kind of tie it all together.
So just going back to the bee thing, because I'm fascinated by that, and it could have a pretty big global impact. What does it actually, does it just prevent colony collapse disorder, or what's the? So
I promise you, I'll get you more information on this. I'm like sworn to secrecy, but it's basically carbon, oxygen, and minerals. And it kind of mimics, when, I don't even know what they're called, but when like hive masters, like use the smoke to calm the bees down. Well, that's actually harmful to them. And this, we're calling hive mist, actually sort of just like mists the hive in carbon, oxygen, and minerals, and it gives them a little bit of a boost. And it turns out it like triples the volume and the output of the hive. So I'll send you some information if you want to learn more about it.
Super cool.
Yeah, that is super cool.
You know what you should do? And I'm just throwing this out there. I don't know if it's a possibility, Flea from the
Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yes, thank you. Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers is actually a beekeeper.
What?
Yeah. He has like 300 hives or something.
Dude, our CEO, his favorite person in the world is Flea. And he's got a base in his office, and he's in there playing all the time.
He's actually I think a pretty good beekeeper.
That's amazing.
He's a pretty good bassist. He's definitely a
high. I've heard.
I don't know if that's a term, but I want it to be a term. I'll say one of my first part-time jobs, I was a beekeeper. I worked on an exotic flower farm in Cambridge, Ontario, and he also was a beekeeper. So I once a month, basically over the summer, probably about 5 or 6 times, I would say. I had to don the hive master's gear, and I smoked the shit out of them. But if I had missed, they would have been a lot happier.
Hive master. Why the hell did I think you were called? It's a beekeeper. Beekeeper.
It's because I called you Dan. I had you thrown off because I called you Dan.
We're full circle now.
Dan the Hive Master. Nice. Well, I think there's still just so much to unpack in I think you're talking with like a lot of game is being spit on this podcast, I would say.
Well, dude, listen, it's the other reason why I love the strategic formula. There is so much going on there that one of the things I've had to, one of the questions you've asked me is like, how has your role changed as this team scaled? And it's really been the role of guide and coach, mentor, but I spend a lot of time coaching the team on what it looks like to put your blinders on, because they hear so much going on, and they're the whole team. They're just straight up mavericks. Like, they will hear something and they just want to go be a part of it. And it drives them crazy because there's just so much gold happening. So that formula really keeps them focused, and, a lot of one-to-ones. We talk about just put your blinders on. The time will come for us to work on those things.
I think too, you said something that resonated with me, and I think I've already repeated it 4 times since I read it in your message, but your job is to remove roadblocks as well. Like, is to hire a visionary team, first of all. And I feel like that's something at Pilot House we've done a really good job of. Like, just as quarantine has been opening up here, we've been getting together more. We've doubled now, I think, since quarantine began, since April or March. And just to meet all these incredibly vibrant people and see how driven they are and see how bought in they are on this company, that they haven't even really been in the office that much, but just the whole vibe that the team has. And I think it has a lot to do, again, with the management strategy. I know it's something that Dave and Jeff and Kyle are all about when it comes to removing roadblocks. I think it's a really powerful term.
Yep. And you know what happens though, as you're doing that, your ego can try to get in the way. And I don't know did you watch The Last Dance at all?
Oh yeah.
So there was a quote in there Chuck Daly said about managing Dennis Rodman. And do you remember what it was?
It's just get out of his way, basically.
He said, you can't put a saddle on a Mustang.
Yeah. And
it sounds like a super hillbilly thing to say, but that's how I look at my team. Like, they're out there and they're sometimes we piss off customer care, we piss off shipping because they go home for the weekend, they come back and they've got 1,500 packages to ship. Sometimes somebody will come up with the team will come up with an idea that I absolutely disagree with, but I know I got to let them do it. And that's how I view them. They're all a bunch of Mustangs, and they're seriously, I don't want to screw with that spirit. So I'm out there removing hurdles, and you just got to let them run a little bit.
I had a boss once in the gaming industry who it was at Big Point. His name is Heiko Huberts. He's a serial entrepreneur, very, very successful, awesome guy, great friend of mine. But he scaled a business to 700 people in probably 6 years. And every single time he had a conversation with any employee in the company, he would say, I am here to support you. Mm-hmm. So it was an inverted pyramid, right? So where the CEO was at the bottom, catching everything to make sure nothing would go through the cracks, as opposed to sitting over the top of the organization. And it sounds to me like that's your philosophy as well.
It is, man. And I tell you what, I walk out of there 80% of the time and I feel like I'm failing, because I opened, because I am there to support them. So as part of that, I've really, I've just built this culture of, or not, I haven't built it. It's just, it's really the company in general, right? But I've advocated for it, of transparency, and like they come to me for everything. So sometimes it feels like they're doing nothing but complaining, but really they're not. They're really just trying to help me make things better. And they know that I'll fight for that and I'll do what I can to support them. And you can imagine scaling as fast as we are, things break like crazy. So there's just always something going on. But
Mm-hmm.
I think, I've learned a lot. I've been leading teams for more than half my career. And this time around, I feel like I've actually got it right for the first time. And it's really, again, nothing that I think I'm really doing. It's the ownership team, just the trust that they have and allowing me to lead the team, and giving me the opportunity for it. And dude, here's a gold nugget. If nobody has heard of this, our culture chief went all in on what's called a Kolbe assessment. Have you heard of this?
No.
So have you've heard of the DISC and Myers-Briggs?
Yep.
Okay. So those measure personality. The Kolbe measures your cognitive strengths, or how you take action. So our culture chief went all in on this. And what's amazing about it is everybody that comes through for an interview, they get a Kolbe. And so we see immediately, based off of like 4 pillars: fact finder, follow through, quick start, implementer. So as we're building teams quickly, we can easily balance them out by knowing like, well, hey, the marketing team has 4 quick starts. I don't know if we really need another one. We actually need a fact finder to help clean up some of the mess at times. But that's been huge too. It also takes a lot of the emotion out of the decisions that are made. Like if, we've got quick starts, like I'm a 9 out of 10. I'm like a 2 on everything else. And then our director of performance marketing is a 9 on a quick start. And like, so we're just like minimally viable path to everything. Like every time an idea comes up, I'm like, oh yeah, we can do that by tomorrow. Because we see the path. But then we've got our content team, or our media team, or like our email manager, who's like, well, hold on a second. Because they see blind spots they cover our blind spots because they're maybe high on fact finder. So it helps create a lot of balance.
That's very cool.
That is. It's funny. I was talking about this with Kyle and Dave, who've been leading the hiring charge for us. And I think Dave, I'm going to be totally passing this on as well. But Kyle's thing comes from McDonald's. He was talking about how I know a couple of people who came up working at McDonald's like as one of their first jobs. And that's one of those, cultures where you just, it really separates, I think, a certain kind of people. And he was specifically speaking, I was just Googling it now, seeing if I could find it, but it's basically this idea, like, are you a doer or are you someone who gets stuff done to them? And that sort of like dichotomy is like the highest level of a Kolbe assessment. Maybe it's really looking for those people that are going to run and do, as opposed to, coming up with reasons why they can't do or et cetera. And so that's a top flowing into a Kolbe assessment could be a pretty powerful team assessment tool.
Absolutely.
Very cool. Nice. I wanted to dig a question here about off the beaten traffic source. And you mentioned registration paths. And obviously I think probably Dan and I, having come from, affiliate marketing and for as long as you have, our ears pricked up. Because that was something I used to do a lot with registration paths, with info and quizzes that would, you'd have to get your results. You'd go through the registration path. I was just wondering, like, if you could do, what is the landscape of registration paths like right now? Is it for incentivized offers that people are selecting your product potentially at a discount?
Yeah, I mean, partially. It's like, at least the one we're testing. So our director of performance marketing, he literally might roundhouse me for bringing this up, because it's like, that was his thing. Like he took what was it? A free trial offer from like 0 to 2 million and like almost overnight with registration path traffic. And I hadn't heard of it when we started working together. I was like, what is this? It sounds so magical. But it's really, getting into that registration path of like, a big content brand in the health niche, for example, is kind of where we're, Healthline is a good example of that. It's one of them that we're testing, or everyday health. But getting in there, and then we're leading off with a quiz that takes people into our flagship product that we're testing free plus shipping on, and then trying to upsell them into more of the same. And then we're testing some subscription options, and then maybe we've tested getting them into like what we call a full moon kit or 90-day challenge. But yeah, it's all started from a quiz, and the quiz doesn't really give them much of an outcome. As you know, it's more designed to engage them and get them leaning forward so they convert. But
exactly.
Yeah.
That's a good way of putting it. Leaning forward so they convert, just sort of like making them to like commit. Like, you know, if you have this problem, this is going to be the solution kind of thing. I think that's what I think a lot of people get bogged down with, like having to create a highly, you know, maybe a complex quiz thing, but really just about engaging. And that's what I find.
Absolutely.
Very cool. Nice. All right. Any other amazing topics we have on our list today to cover? How was your July 4th weekend?
You know, what's funny is it was good. It was relaxing. But what I was really curious about is what you guys do in Canada today.
Roast beavers. No.
They chop down trees, right?
That's highly illegal to even say that about beavers in Canada.
Is it really?
But no. No. It's like cows in India. We can't disrupt their, if they want to build a den like on your house, it's too bad. It's their right. No, nothing like that. Just same thing. Beers, barbecues, lakes, like, you know, all those wonderful things. We usually have fireworks on our Canada Day, and like lame artists perform at our Parliament buildings, but none of that happened. So just barbecued with friends. I just went camping with you know, and turned my phone off for the whole weekend this past weekend, which was really needed and awesome. I haven't done that in months and months, so that was awesome.
I just did the same, and this is why, like, when I say I think I know you, I saw those photos on Facebook. I just did the same, where I got all my son's friends and their dads together, and we went like 2 hours out into the Idaho wilderness on the bank of a river and camped out for 4 days, and it was pretty amazing to get away and just clear the head.
That's awesome.
Speaking of secrets, is a secret as well, in terms of like what a great place it is and how much it's growing, how good it is for the startup scene, and people are like, don't tell everyone about it.
Dude, I had forgotten Idaho was even a place. We were in Dallas. We were in Dallas, Texas in 2017 or so. We moved around. My wife's in radio, so we moved around a lot. And then she got an offer from a station in Boise, and we were like, where is that? Like, I didn't even know ClickFunnels was here, you know? So like, there's all this cool little scene here that's happening. I mean, bodybuilding.com is here. But yeah, we moved here. We just looked at pictures and we're like, we got to go. It's beautiful. And we've been here for 3 years now.
Nice. All right. Well, thanks for coming on the hot seat today. I think you provided a ton of value. I think there's a lot in here for people. And yeah, we'll do it again soon. And let's put our heads together on some CRO stuff we might be able to work together on.
Dude, absolutely. And if you want, you know, have some of my team on. I mean, these guys, you know, some of these guys, they trump me by, you know, factor of 10 and what they can do with some marketing. So it's a pleasure talking to you, man. And nice to meet you, Dan.
Yeah, nice to meet you too, Dave.
Okay.
Pleasure for me as well.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. Talk to you later.
Bye.
All right, everyone. Thank you for coming on D2C today. This is our first podcast that I think we'll launch that has our new D2C branding. We're so excited to be launching our newsletter. So on this post somewhere, you're going to find a link that you can subscribe to directtoconsumer.co, which will be our collected wisdom from this podcast, as well as from the front lines of the Pilot House agency, day-to-day, spending millions a month for clients. We hope to be able to give you the best value consumer acquisition insights in an easy-to-read, 10 minutes a week format. So subscribe below. We can't wait to get going with it. It's going to launch next week. We'll see you then. Cheers, guys.